Hi everyone, I am Hillel and this is Psalm 49 in memory of Aunt Sarah. And I just want to acknowledge before I start that the ideas that are going to be discussed today, at least the good ideas, are from my professor Joseph Angel in YU. One of the things that we have to discuss before we start is the different types of psalms. This has psalms of supplication, some which are of request to God, some which express gratitude to God, some which praise God, others which address historical circumstances, but the one that we have today is a psalm of edification, one which is addressing an issue, a moral issue, which the author seems to be encountering amongst the people. And we will see this idea of him addressing a crowd. It seems even in the first 5 psukim that the author is talking to people who are in front of him in the first 5 psukim that we're about to discuss. Lamnatseach livnei Korach mizmor, for the leader of the Bnei Korach, a psalm. Shimu zot kol hamim ha'azinu kol yoshvei cheled. Hear this, all you peoples, give ear, all inhabitants of the world. Gam b'nei adam, gam b'nei ish, yachad ashir ve'evyon. Men of all estates, rich and poor alike. Pi deber chachamot, my mouth utters wisdom. Vehagot libi tfunot, my speech is full of insight. Atel mashal azni, eftach bechinor chidati. I will turn my attention to a theme, set forth my lesson to the music of a lyre. So again, we see the extensive nature of this psalm. We see that it starts off by saying, Kol ha'amim, everyone listen, all nations. Kol yoshvei cheled, all the inhabitants of the world. It extends beyond just Kol ha'amim, it goes even to all the inhabitants of the world. Even those people who are not part of Amim, possibly people who don't actually have anything to do with the nation. It also addresses those who are rich and poor alike. It's everyone. It's trying to be very, very broad. And one of the things that we have to ask about Pasuk Hey is Chidati. Chidati is a secret, and we have to try to understand what exactly that secret is. So Rashi interprets Chidati as being what the next pasuk discusses, which is Lama ira bimeira, why in times of trouble should I fear? Avon akve yisovaveni, the encompassing evil of those who should supplant me. Rashi believes that it could either be referring to the sins which surround us, how we are susceptible to sinning, or it could be sinners, those who sin around us, who might actually influence us. The issue that we will be addressing, which we will very soon see, is the wealthy people who obsess over their wealth. And so Rashi believes that Avon Akve Yisovaveni is referring to the wealthy people influencing others by making it a prime issue to try and attain as much wealth as possible, and having this weird perception of wealth where it can somehow prevent us from going to the underworld and living forever. Professor Angel offers a different perspective where he says that it connects to Pasuk Tetzayin, which says, Ach Elohim yifte nafshi miyad she'ol ki kacheni sela. In other words, the idea of the Chidati is how there are people who go to the underworld and remain in the underworld, and there are those who are actually taken from the underworld by God. And this psalm is referring to life and death, those who live even beyond the underworld and those who remain dead forever. And it pertains to the issue of wealth, where those who obsess over wealth will remain in the underworld, and those who are not obsessing over wealth will be taken from the underworld after they die. Pasuk Zayin, Habotchim al chilam uberov ashram yitalalu, men who trust in their riches, who glory in their great wealth. Ach lo pado yivde ish, it cannot redeem a man, lo yitain leluhim kafro, or pay his ransom to God. Now what's interesting about Pasuk Chet, it says, Ach lo pado yivde ish. It says brother, right? Because ach is usually interpreted as brother. Lo pado yivdeh will not redeem ish, a man. But if ach was referring to brother, it seems like it would make more sense to say ach lo pado yivdeh ach. Brother will not redeem brother. But we see in Pasuk Tetzayin again that it says ach Elohim yifdeh nafshi. So we have this term ach being used. We have podeh being used again in the same context where it's redeeming someone's soul. So it seems like what makes more sense is that the two are connected, and it's implying that Hashem can redeem someone from the underworld, from death, and man cannot, or wealth cannot redeem someone from the underworld. Pasuk Tet, Vayikar pidyon nafsham, the price of life is too high, v'chadal leolam, and so one ceases to be forever. Life is priceless, and therefore any amount of wealth that people attain can in no way prevent them from going down to the underworld. And v'chadal leolam, it will cease to be forever. Now there's a debate about what chadal leolam means. One ceases to be forever could either be, according to Rashi, a person ceases to be forever, meaning man generally will die, and there's nothing that can stop that issue. Or it could be interpreted as the the enterprise of using wealth as a way of paying ransom or preventing death. So v'chadal le'olam means that it is futile to attempt to pay ransom with wealth and try and prevent yourself from being sent to the underworld. Pasuk Yud, Vayechi od lanetzach, shall he live eternally, lo yireh hashachad, and never see the grave. Now shachad is a strange word which Professor Angel has interpreted as referring to Sheol, the underworld, but we will see soon why the Chacham actually interpreted it as grave. Ki yireh chachamim yamutu, for one sees that the wise die, yachad ksil v'va'ar yovedu, that the foolish and ignorant both perish, ve'azvu la'achirim chelam, and they leave their wealth for others. So what's interesting about this pasuk Yud Aleph is that it's very similar to the ideas conveyed in Kohelet, where it says that everything is futile, whether you are a wise person, whether you are a righteous person, whether you are a foolish person, or an evil person, ultimately everyone has the same end. So that's an interesting idea. And then we see in the next pasuk, Kirbam batemo leolam, their grave is their eternal home, Mishkenotam ledor vador, the dwelling place for all generations, Kiru bishmotam alei adumot, of those ones famous on the earth. And again, this is interesting. We have this idea, this translation, at least in the JPS Tanakh, and also the Chacham and Chazal, saying Kirbam is, again, grave. Shachat and Kirbam refer to grave. What's interesting is the Septuagint actually has the word Kivram, and the Chachamim turned the word Kirbam into Kivram, which refers to grave. So they thought that makes more sense. Also, again, pertaining to the idea of Kohelet, we see that in Kohelet Yud Bet Pasuk Hey, we have the grave, the underworld being referred to as Beit Olamo, again, the grave. Okay, continuing on, we see in Pasuk Yud Gimel, V'adam bikar bal yalin, man does not abide in honor, nimshal kabahimot nidmu, he is like the beasts that perish. In other words, just because man has wealth, he ultimately will suffer the same end, and he does not live in honor because he is constantly obsessed with this pursuit of attaining more and more wealth. What's interesting about this pasuk, again, if you skip to pasuk Chav Aleph, is it says, Adam bikar v'lo yavin, man does not understand honor, nimshal kabahimot nidmu, he is like the beasts that perish. Almost virtually the same exact pasuk, except we have bal yadlin, he does not abide or live in honor, and v'lo yavin, he does not understand honor. And what that could be trying to convey is that man does not live in honor because he pursues wealth, and that's the only thing he focuses on. And lo yavin, he doesn't understand, meaning he assumes that wealth will somehow prevent him from going to the underworld, and he also assumes that perhaps wealth will follow him to the underworld and offer him this very luxurious life, but the answer is it will not follow him into the underworld. Pasuk Yudal, Zedar kam kesel amo, such is the fate of those who are self-confident, v'acharehem b'fihem yirtzu sela, the end of those pleased with their own talk. The author clearly here has a negative attitude towards these wealthy people, and he portrays them as people who are very self-confident, very focused on themselves, and don't actually in any way focus on other people or anything aside from the issue of wealth. Pasuk Tetvav, Katson lish'ol shatu, like sheep they go down to Sheol, Mavet yirain, death is their shepherd, V'yirdubam yesharim laboker, the upright shall rule over them at daybreak, V'tsuram levalot Sheol, and their form shall waste away in Sheol, or perhaps even be swallowed by Sheol, mi zevul lo, till its nobility be gone. Now, one of the things that are usually not discussed very often is this place Sheol. Many people, when they hear Sheol, they assume that it's the underworld, which it usually is, and they have this negative attitude towards Sheol. But in some contexts, we'll see throughout Tanakh, which I would like to talk about right now, it's not always negative. And in some cases, it's even portrayed as something very positive, or at least something which could be an enjoyable place to live in. So the first place that we ever see Sheol is in Bereshit Mem Bet, Pasuk Lamed Chet, where Yaakov has just heard about how Shimon was imprisoned, and now that the Pharaoh or Yosef is requesting that Binyamin come down to him. So Yaakov says, "My son must not go down with you, for his brother is dead and he alone is left. If he meets with disaster on the journey you are taking, you will send my white head down to Sheol in grief." So Sheol is, again, associated with the underworld. It's below the earth. He must go down to Sheol. And also it is a negative place because that is the place where Yaakov will experience his grief. In Yeshayahu Yudalid, Pasuk Tet to Yud Aleph, it says, "Sheol below was astir to greet your coming, rousing for you the ghosts of all earth's chieftains. All speak up and say to you, so you have been stricken as we were, you have become like us. Your pomp is brought down to Sheol. Worms are to be your bed, maggots your blanket. So now we have these other descriptions. We have maggots and worms being your blanket, very negative. And then it says that you will be stricken as we were, right? Everyone in Sheol is stricken. Everyone in Sheol is experiencing a lot of negative experiences. In Psalm 141 pasuk Zayin, it says, "Our bones are scattered at the mouth of Sheol," which again, now we have this additional description where you have bones, and we also have Sheol being described as a mouth, which might in some way connect to the ancient Near Eastern god of Mot, which was a god which swallowed things, consumed things, and anything that was consumed by Mot ultimately went down to the underworld. So there might be some connection there. We won't go into detail about that. And there are other negative descriptions of Sheol, which we're going to skip over right for now. But we see in some places that Sheol is actually not described as such a negative place. In Shmuel Aleph, Perek Chavchet, Pasuk Yud Aleph to Tedvav, we have the story of the Baalat Ov, where Shaul comes to the Baalat Ov to bring up Shmuel. And it says, the woman asked, "Whom shall I bring up for you?" He answered, "Bring up Shmuel for me." Then the woman recognized Shmuel, and she shrieked loudly and said to Shaul, "Why have you deceived me? You are Shaul." The king answered her, "Don't be afraid. What do you see?" And the woman said to Shaul, "I see a divine being coming up from the earth." "What does he look like?" he asked her. "It is an old man coming up," she said, "and he is wrapped in a robe." Then Shaul knew that it was Shmuel, and he bowed low in homage with his face to the ground. Shmuel said to Shaul, "Why have you disturbed me and brought me up?" So first we have, again, this idea of being brought up, right? Shaul is beneath us. But we see that Shmuel is, first of all, wearing a robe, which seems strange. He still has the appearance of a divine being, so his physical features have not changed. And he also says to Shaul, "Why have you disturbed me?" Which seems weird if this is such a negative place. Why would he be so against people visiting him or why would it be a disturbance? And the answer might be that really this isn't such a negative place. Maybe this is actually a positive place. And one thing that we have to think about is that if this really is a negative place, why do we have Shmuel, one of the most positive figures in Tanakh, being found in Sheol? It seems strange that we would find Shmuel there, if this is a place which only the evil people are sent to. So that's a question that we have to think about as we go on. We also have two descriptions in Eov. Eov says, "Why did I not die?" This is Eov Gimel Pasuk Yud Aleph to Yutet. "Why did I not die at birth, expire as I came forth from the womb? For now would I be lying in repose, asleep, and at rest, with the world's kings and counselors who rebuild ruins for themselves, or with nobles who possess gold and will fill their houses with silver. Or why was I not like a buried stillbirth, like babies who never saw the light? There the wicked cease from troubling, there rest those whose strength is spent." In other words, we have nobles, we have kings who are doing many positive things who live there. We have the wicked who are ceasing from performing evils. So again, it seems like this, and he wishes that he would have died and been able to go down to Sheol. He actually prefers Sheol over the earth because that is a place where he can be asleep and at rest. So again, Sheol is portrayed now as a positive place, a place where you can attain rest, you can be amongst these very significant figures, and you have essentially nothing to worry about in terms of people performing evil deeds, because all the evil will now cease. So that's a strange thing, which actually seems to conflict with our initial portrayal of Sheol. And then in Eov Yud Pasuk Chaf to Chafbed, it says, "My days are few, so desist. Leave me alone, let me be diverted a while. Before I depart, never to return, for the land of deepest gloom." Right? He says, never to return, which again, this seems like it actually portrays Sheol in the way we assumed it would be portrayed as, which is a negative thing, where it's a place of darkness and gloom. But he says that you will never return. And this conflicts with the idea we discussed in Memtet, which was that God can retrieve man from Sheol. So why is it now that he's implying that you can't be retrieved? Man will never be retrieved from Sheol. And this actually led Rava in Baba Batra Tet Zayin to say, "Mikan shekafar Eov b'tchiyat hametim." This is where we know that Eov actually denied the idea of the resurrection of the dead. So that's just interesting knowledge to know about Sheol. And we will continue now with Pasuk Tet Zayin. "Ach Elohim yifdeh nafshi miyad," but God will redeem my life from the clutches of Sheol. "Ki kacheni Selah," for he will take me from there. Selah. Again, this idea that God can take us from Sheol, unlike what was somewhat conveyed in Eov. "Al tiraki ashir ish," do not be afraid when a man becomes rich. "Ki yirbeh kavod beto," when his household household goods increase. Ki lo b'moto yikach hakol, for when he dies, he can take nothing with him. Lo yired acharav kvodo, his goods cannot follow him down. Again, this idea that anyone who assumes that their wealth will follow them down, that will not actually be the case. And there may be some connection here with some of the practices that existed back then that we know of, like for example the Egyptians who would put a lot of their possessions within their grave with them, assuming that they will bring it along with them in the afterlife. So this might be rejecting that idea. Ki nafsho b'chayav yivarech, though he congratulates himself in his lifetime, v'yodecha ki tetev lach, they must admit that you did well by yourself. Tavo ad dor avotav, yet he must join the company of his ancestors. Ad netzach lo yiru or, who will never see daylight again. Adam bikar v'lo yavin, man does not understand. Honor nimshal kebehimot nidmu, he is like the beasts that perish. He will go down to the earth, and he will be just like his ancestors who were before him, that they went down to the underworld, and they cannot find any way of preventing that, even with all the wealth that they have.